Now let's talk about security incident and event management systems. So it's a big fancy title. It might also be called a SIM, and I'll be using that term for the remainder of this course. Security incident and event management systems can be a bit wordy, but as a whole, a SIM is a log aggregator with some analytics and advanced functionality on top of it. Okay, so think about all the devices that might create a log. Think about firewall or proxy logging. You might be able to see what URL someone goes to. If they click Chrome and then enter in a website like google.com, that'll create a log with google.com being accessed, maybe the IP address of google.com, the source IP, or their host. And that's all data that will be in those firewall or proxy logs. Taking that same example, endpoint logging, you might have a logging system that are on all the hosts. So if someone has a laptop and that's what they use to access the network and they open up Chrome, you might be able to see that activity where Chrome was opened, they went to this website, that website, and you might even be able to see if something was downloaded. And it should line up with the firewall and proxy logging, but you might get some more detail in one or the other based off of the configuration of what you have, the tooling of what you have. Email logging is a fun one too. In corporate environments, all emails are typically logged. You'll see the sender, you'll see the recipient, the subject, attachments, attachment hashes. If it's a security product, you'll see if those attachments were scanned, if they were flagged as malware, if they were blocked, all that kind of fun stuff. Going down further, we have application logging. So if your company is using, let's say AWS. In AWS, there are a suite of different tools that are well out of the scope of this course, but all those applications within AWS and different services and microservices, they all log and can be sent to the SIM, which brings me to my next point here. All this data, and it's definitely not limited to these four are just four big ones that I happen to pick for this demonstration. All these logs go into the SIM. Let's say you're looking at an incident, and let's say Carl, he hasn't been the best worker. Let's say he's been browsing too much Netflix, Facebook, all that on work time. You can go back as far as 30, 60, 90 days, or even as far as a year if the logging is set up to retain that far back. You can see all the kinds of logs that have triggered. You can filter on, I want to see only his web browsing activity. What were the hours of those browsing activity? Was he doing a lot of personal email during work? Was he on sites he shouldn't have been on during work? There's all kinds of implications with that, but that's all things you need to look at as an analyst and as a detection engineer. The data is key. These are all key pieces of security operations that really everyone needs to have access to and needs to know in order to be able to do their job. Okay. Key point there, logging is absolutely critical to everything in cybersecurity. Moving into more of what SIMs are and what they can offer. First off, security alerting. So this is where detection engineering can do their thing, create alerts. Vendor alerts can also be sent to the SIM. So it can be a one-stop shop for both custom and vendor-based alerting. You can have dashboards. So let's say you're looking at network activity. You can have pre-made dashboards to let you see what you want to dig into based off of certain data points. Let's say source IP, let's say destination IP, URL, things of that nature. Really all depends on your use case and what data you have to work with. Query, another name for querying is just searching, the ability to go back in time and see all the logs across the board, whatever you need to do your job, right? And all these security functions need logging at a certain point to do their job. And that's a very key component of what a SIM is. You might also hear that as log aggregation. SIMs will have much more functionality than this, but just painting in broad strokes here, we have case management. A lot of SIMs have this kind of capability baked in. So for example, let's say there are multiple security alerts that are all tied to the same user or same host. Security analysts can tie all that together and put in their notes. They can put in extra information. If they downloaded a file, let's say off the host, let's say their history file for their Chrome or Firefox or one of their browsers, and they want that submitted as evidence, they can have all that nice and tidy in the case and provide a timeline, logs. Really, it's just the world's your oyster in terms of what you want to put into a case to show all your analysis. Digging into where these various teams that we've talked about prior fit into these functions. You have detection engineering, who can create security alerts. They might be able to assist incident responders or threat hunters in creating dashboards if there's an expertise that's missing there. And querying is definitely needed by detection engineering to create the security alerts themselves. We have incident response, who needs all 4 of these functions. They need case management to work the alerts. They need the alerts to have something to work. They need querying to look at ancillary activity, link things together, and they need dashboards to help them more quickly investigate to cut down that mean time to respond for the alerts. Then hunting and intel, they are primarily living in dashboards and querying, or in entirely different products like a threat intelligence platform. Intel might live in there wholly, and that platform might go back to the SIEM and query it. But by and large, they need that querying and potentially dashboarding functionality to do their job. Main point here is that security tooling and logs are the absolute foundation for security operations. So key point here, I'm going to try not to just read these off the screen, but just as a summary, defensive teams, there's a lot of variety there between roles, between responsibilities, departments, what different organizations call what might even be the same role across companies. Different groups might also be called something different. What I refer to as a cyber defense organization or a security operations center might also be called a threat detection and incident response team, or TETR. There's a whole host of different acronyms and ways that companies have chopped up the different roles and responsibilities and how they communicate that. There might also be a lot of overlap within those responsibilities based off of budget, resources, what that company by and large has to work with. And then these roles very much rely on security tooling and logging to do their job properly. I will read this one, but incident response teams react to alerts that detection engineering creates. Okay, and that is the finish of this first section of our detection engineering theory. I'll stop it here for brevity, but we're going to continue on and talk through a typical detection engineering workflow in the next video. Thank you all for sticking with me. I'll see you in the next video.